Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to bit of a special video. Today we have Craig from, let me make sure I get this right, Up the Cherries in all departments, and we're going to be talking about Mark Travers today. So first of all, welcome to the channel again, Craig.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Callum. Always a pleasure to be on here.
So before we get into the gritty details of anything, for anyone who doesn't know about
Mhm.
Mark Travers, would you tell us who he is,
Yeah.
how old he is, how long he's been at Bournemouth, just those basic details to start us off?
Yeah, of course. So Mark Travers, he's a Republic of Ireland international. He's played a handful of games for the international team, but he joined AFC Bournemouth back in 2016 on a youth contract, working under Neil Moss, who is a well-known goalkeeper at this football club and a hero. And he's done very, very, very well. And he's been here ever since he joined. Effectively, AFC Bournemouth are his only professional club that he signed permanently for. But you will have seen him playing for Middlesbrough, Stoke, Swindon, and of course Weymouth if you look that far down the pyramid. And at each of those places, he's done very, very well. It's a very, very strange, bit of speculation this for me, and I'll go into it in a bit more detail. But what Everton would be getting if they do sign Mark Travers is, a tall, very good shot stopper at this level.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because the rumours first came around a couple of days ago
Hmm.
from Sky Sports News, now
Yeah.
being reported by Paddy Boylan of the Athletic. So it's reliable sources coming out and saying that
Hmm.
Everton are interested and that a fee has been mentioned, possibly of being paid around, I think I saw something about 5 million.
Yeah.
So there's clearly interest from Everton's side, but from your perspective, like you said, you see Travers as a good goalkeeper, someone
Yeah.
who's clearly good enough to start at this level. What were your thoughts when you first saw these rumours?
My thought all along has been like, why are we not utilizing Mark Travers? Mark Travers, just going back to last season against Manchester City when Kepa was injured, he come in and had an absolute blinding game. Yes, we did concede the one goal, but we could have conceded, a couple more. The save from Erling Haaland was from a pinpoint, angle, and Haaland got it on target as he normally does. And Mark Travers, from very, very close range, managed to keep that ball out of the back of the net. Even if we go back to our win over Spurs, which was his debut in the Premier League, this is going back to 2019. Before that, he'd only been on loan at Weymouth. That's the only team he'd actually played a professional game for. And I was worried going into that because Mark Travers, what's he like? He's only played at National League South level. He's not really setting up much promise. And we was under the cosh by Spurs for a long period in that game. And we still won it 1-0. And a lot of that has to go down to Mark Travers. Mark Travers, in all honesty, was the man of the match for me in that game. I'm pretty sure he was the man of the match as well with Sky. So he's a very impressive goalkeeper, and I just don't understand. Well, I do understand why Andoni Iraola isn't favouring him, but I would like and I would prefer that Mark Travers stays at AFC Bournemouth and becomes the number one next season, considering Kepa's gone to Arsenal. Neto is probably out the equation. Um, Mark Travers, I think, should get his chance here.
Yeah. Um, like you said, he's been with Bournemouth since he joined the academy in 2016.
Mhm.
Made eight, I think it says here, 82 appearances with 30 clean sheets. When you probably put that into numbers, it's one every 3 games when you think about
Yeah.
it. Is this one of those players like I always use Alex Iwobi a few years back as my kind of litmus test where I
Hmm.
really liked him. They're a big part of the fan base that didn't. Is this sort of one of yours as where it's a content creator thing where because you analyze the game so much from a Bournemouth perspective, do you see him in maybe a bit of a better light, or is it a consensus in the Bournemouth fan base that he should be starting, he should be the number one, and we shouldn't be getting rid of him.
Personally, I think he wouldn't have made some of the mistakes that Kepa made last season had he been permanently in the first team. And I think that Chelsea probably had some sort of clause over Kepa that we had to play him in the majority of matches, which throws out Mark Travers. It was a real shame because I think Mark Travers, honestly, is a better shot stopper than Kepa. I think the consensus across the whole of the Bournemouth fan base is that Travers should be getting his opportunity. He is, 26 years of age. Goalkeepers, of course, do go to an older age than most outfield players. And I think Mark Travers has got a very, very good future here at AFC Bournemouth if Andoni Iraola lets him. I'll give you why Andoni Iraola, I believe, isn't giving him that chance. And he's not a goalkeeper that plays the ball out from the back with his feet. Kepa, as you know, does that. We are interested in another goalkeeper. Of course, rumours, rumours. I don't believe anything until I see it from Mark McAdam, who is a Bournemouth fan, but also from Sky Sports. And Andoni Iraola wants that style of goalkeeper, that one where they can pass it out, pass it around the back of the defence, can take it back. Mark Travers, when he's got the ball back from defenders in the past, hasn't looked 100% comfortable with the ball at his feet. He's a good shot stopper. He's a goalkeeper, but that's what Andoni Iraola is looking for. But I don't understand why we aren't giving him his chance, considering we have got some of the best wingers, really, that a team outside the top six could hope for. We've got better wingers than Manchester United. We've got better wingers than Spurs. You look at David Brooks, you look at Luis Sinisterra, Marcus Tavernier, Dango Ouattara, Semenyo. There's plenty of players who could retrieve that ball and get that ball up the pitch quicker if we adapted our style of play to suit Mark Travers.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one because I think if you looked at a purely numbers perspective,
Hmm.
his most consistent season seems to be the championship season of 21-22, which I believe
Yes.
was where you were promoted.
Yes.
Played 46 games, kept 21 clean sheets. Would you say that's his best time at Bournemouth performance-wise, or is that maybe more of a this is just the time he actually got given a full season to just play his football?
To be honest, he got given the chance by Scott Parker to play his football on a regular basis, and he was outstanding. He really, really was outstanding. I think, honestly, since then, he hasn't been given his opportunity. He did start the Premier League campaign in our first season back. Of course, we beat Villa 2-0. A very, very good result, albeit Steven Gerrard was at the wheel for Villa, who, let's be honest, is not a very good manager at all. And then we had Manchester City, we had Arsenal, and we had the other side from I won't name them for you, Callum. Um, honestly, it was yeah, it's painful memories that one. So of course, got beat by Manchester City, no shame. Mark Travers did well. He when he was called upon, he reacted. It seemed like we was going for it a little bit in that game. And then the Arsenal game was where it kind of all changed for Mark Travers and also Scott Parker, because we did this stupid thing where we went just incredibly defensive and was just we, we we just sat back in front of the goalkeeper. We didn't offer much protection. It was Arsenal picking us off at ease. And, rightly so, we got absolutely thrashed by Arsenal at home. But worse was to come when we did go across the park, we got hammered 9-0. And again, Scott Parker has to take full responsibility for this, even though he did turn around and threw the side under the bus, a young side. The players that had served him so well and got him out of that division. And also our previous owner, Maxim Denham, of course, Maxim knew exactly what was going to happen moving forwards. We did bring in Neto, and Mark Travers kept Neto out the side. So Scott Parker did persist with him, but the fact that we was just go playing so defensive, it offered no protection to Mark Travers. And although it might sound really stupid, Callum, we was thrashed 9-0. I cannot pin one of those goals on Mark Travers. And then after that, Mark Travers was basically made the scapegoat. Gary O'Neill come in, preferred Neto, and he was frozen out again. So it's a real shame. I feel really sorry for Mark Travers because that game against Spurs, he was outstanding. He actually won us the 3 points. To be honest, we should have come away from that game with nothing, but he won us the 3 points because he was absolutely brilliant against Manchester City last season. Again, very, very good. Albeit, yes, our team were really, really, really outperformed themselves. And some people say to us about that City game and say, oh, well, City weren't at the races that day. They were at the races more than they were in the subsequent weeks that game. It was just the players played very, very well, but also Mark Travers did his bit. In all honesty, I don't understand this transfer, Callum, if it happens, because Mark Travers is a goalkeeper that should be number one. He's been playing second fiddle. He's been getting loan moves out because he wants to be number one. That's why he went to Middlesbrough. That's why he went to Stoke, which was, to be honest, a little bit disappointing, from what I looked at, but not really on Mark Travers' part. More Stoke was just crap. Um, so he's moved out to the Championship not to play second fiddle. I can't see him going to Everton to play second fiddle to the best English goalkeeper, we've had for some time. Um, is Jordan Pickford really going to be, moved from number one to by Mark Travers? I think it would be very, very difficult for any goalkeeper to move Jordan Pickford from Everton, unless, and this is a big unless somebody is coming in for Jordan Pickford. That's the only explanation I can give. But I can't understand why Mark wants to go and play second fiddle when he wants first team football all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one because I don't think you'd go on all these loans to the Championship if you wanted to be the number one.
Mm,
Um, and like you mentioned, you clearly think he has the talent to be
yeah,
a Premier League number one. Do you think this would be a good deal for Everton if they managed to pull it off?
it would be. It would be, but providing he gets time. And like I say, I don't think he's going to move Pickford. I don't think anybody's going to move Pickford. You are in what is a very, very difficult situation at Everton because you want adequate backup. You want a good goalkeeper as backup. However, your number one goalkeeper is that good. He's the bar is very, very, very high. The only way a number two is going to get their chance at Everton is if Jordan Pickford either leaves the club or is injured. The second one we hope doesn't happen. So for Mark Travers' career, this makes zero sense. Everton, without a shadow of a doubt, are a much, much, much bigger team than AFC Bournemouth. There's no doubt about that. But when you are wanting, and you're 26 years old, and you're wanting first team football, and you've been going to clubs in the Championship, and you can play at this level for somebody, be it a Sunderland, a Leeds, or someone like that, it doesn't make sense to go to Everton and play second fiddle to what is the best goalkeeper, English goalkeeper, for some time.
Yeah, and just before we get to the end of the video here, do you
Yeah.
have any last words you want to say about Mark Travers, on Mark Travers in general, in about this whole transfer saga, maybe not just
Mhm.
the transfer to Everton in general?
Yeah. I think personally, I'm disappointed that, he should had his chance here. I think we should have persisted with him last season. Do I think that our position in the Premier League would have changed with Mark Travers in goal? I don't think it would have. I think we would have still finished where we were. If not, we might have even finished a little bit higher because, like I say, against Brentford away at the G-Tech, Kepa made some stupid mistakes. Um, so we need to look at it that way. That I don't think that Mark Travers, if he was here for the duration of last season and was playing and Kepa was number two, I don't think we would have been in any worse position. I think his loan moves out. I think the Stoke move wasn't particularly that great, but mainly down to Stoke. The Middlesbrough loan move, they were a bit unlucky, to be fair, in the end, but he was pretty much ever present for them. And then going back even further than that, Weymouth and Swindon, albeit he wasn't there for very long with Swindon, but he he did a very, very good job, and he's done a very good job here. And he's a goalkeeper that just needs his run in a first team to actually get his confidence up. And he can play at this level, 100%, 100%. So that's why I think if Iriola is going to keep making him number two, there's no point in him actually being here, in all honesty. And I know this is a bit of a curveball now. I don't think there's any point for Mark Travers and his career to stay at AFC Bournemouth if we are just going to make him number two. He's better than that. But likewise, I can't understand why he'd want to go to Everton and be number two. Hey, if Leeds turn around and say, look, we'll make you number one, or Sunderland or Burnley, I would actually say, hey, that makes more sense than this. He's not gonna I don't think any goalkeeper is gonna move Jordan Pickford without a real battle from the number one position at Everton. And I think the cycle will just continue again. So yeah, that is my honest opinion. It's my honest opinion. But if he does go to Everton, you've got a very, very good goalkeeper. How much of him will you see? I'm not sure. Where's he going to go on loan? Is he going to go to Blackburn? Is he going to go to? I think that's what will end up happening to him if he goes to Everton as well.
Yeah, I do think it's a very interesting transfer overall. But that is all we have time for in this video. I want to thank you, Craig, for coming on the channel once
My
again.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Make sure to check out Craig's channel and his socials. They'll all be linked down below. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Everton Newsfeed. And I will see you all for the next video that I am on. Like and subscribe, by the way. I'll get in trouble if I don't say that. And I'll see you all for the next video.